He said I reeked of money. Said he wanted a pure woman, not someone like me. So I smiled and spent 800 taels to buy the most beautiful man in the capital. If he wanted purity, I wanted devotion. My father wanted to take Xun An in as a live-in son-in-law. He, however, said I reeked of money and declared that he would only marry a pure and upright scholar's daughter. So I turned around and told the matchmaker to find me a man willing to marry into my family instead. The matchmaker brought over Xun An's sworn rival from school, Chen Yinyu. His parents were long dead, and he was dirt poor, but he was undeniably handsome. Chen Yinyu spoke with righteous confidence. My lifelong wish is to find a good family and settle down as a live-in son-in-law. I told him to cut the act and tell the truth. He immediately changed his tone, frank and disarmingly honest. I'm greedy for money. I want a rich woman to support me. 01. The matchmaker sucked in a sharp breath. I, on the other hand, laughed. Greedy for money? Perfect. As long as I paid enough, he'd be the most obedient husband imaginable. Far better than those hypocrites who want profit, reputation, and your eternal gratitude and admiration all at once. I beckoned him with a crook of my finger. Come here. Chen Yinyu stepped forward at once and lifted the beaded curtain between us. As the beads clinked softly, I saw his face clearly in the bright light for the first time. My breath caught for a second. He really was beautiful. He looked just like that ink painting of orchids hanging in my study. So pure it became almost breathtakingly alluring. His features were striking, yet subdued beneath plain robes, restrained but impossible to ignore. Name your price, I said bluntly. He paused for a moment, then lifted his eyes to mine. His gaze was cool and clear as it settled on my face. Touching hands, 20 taels. Kissing, 50 taels. Sharing a bed, 100 taels. I arched a brow. You're serious? His expression didn't change. His tone was steady. Miss Jean, if I dare to quote that price, it's because I'm worth it. I didn't respond. Not because I thought he was asking too much, but because he was asking far too little. With a face like Chen Yinyu's, if he were placed in a pleasure house like Chunfeng Pavilion, 500 taels a night would probably spark a bidding war. How fortunate. I'd stumbled upon someone who didn't know the market. I looked at him, the corner of my lips slowly curving upward. 800 taels. You marry into the Jean family. That's the price for you, as a person. I'm buying you outright. His lashes flickered slightly as he waited for me to continue. As for other services, those will be priced separately. Jin Yu, never shortchange my own people. The matchmaker didn't dare breathe too loudly beside us. I shifted my tone. I have only one requirement. Be a quiet, useful tool. Don't cause me trouble. Chen Yinyu was silent for a moment. Then a faint smile tugged at his lips. Miss Jean is straightforward. He extended his hand toward me, palm up. His fingers were long, the joints clean and well-defined. In that case, perhaps a deposit first? 02. I told a servant to bring the banknotes. The matchmaker received her commission and left in high spirits. I pushed the stack of notes toward Chen Yinyu. He paused slightly, and when he looked up, there seemed to be a flicker of light in his eyes. 400 taels as a deposit, I said. The remaining 400 after everything is settled. Chen Yinyu glanced at the money and suddenly chuckled. Miss Jean isn't afraid I'll take the silver and disappear? I lifted my teacup, blew away the foam on top, and smiled faintly. Why would I be? My tone was light and unhurried. I trust your character, young master. What was 400 taels, anyway? If he really ran off with it, I wouldn't even bother chasing him. I'd just consider it money tossed into the water for the sound it makes. Chen Yinyu looked at me, something shifting in his gaze. Then he carefully tucked the banknotes away, his fingertips brushing lightly over their edges. There was a grounded sort of relief in his eyes, the look of someone who had just secured a long-term meal ticket. Ah! I sighed inwardly. This boy clearly had never seen what a true mountain of gold looked like. To his credit, Chen Yinyu did have a sense of professional integrity. That very afternoon, he arrived at my residence with a half-worn trunk in tow. Since he had taken the deposit, he said, he ought to move in and put my mind at ease. I had someone prepare a side room for him and left it at that. Business at the trading house was endlessly complicated. I worked until late into the night. Just as I was about to turn in, there came a soft knock at the door. When I opened it, Chen Yinyu stood outside, his body wrapped in damp steam. His black hair was still half wet. He wore only a loosely draped outer robe, the collar slightly open. Candlelight softened his silhouette, making him look like a spirit that devoured souls. His voice was gentler than during the day, tinged with the coolness of the night air. I've taken the money. It's only fair the employer inspects the goods. I leaned against the doorframe and raised a brow. And what if I'm not satisfied? He smiled faintly, his eyes shifting with quiet allure. I don't offer refunds on deposits. So, I'll make sure Miss Jean is satisfied. 03. I'd been exhausted all day. I really wasn't in the mood. But when a beauty throws himself at you, it's hard to turn him away. Besides, it wasn't like we had to do that. I stepped aside to let him in and walked straight to my desk. A faint fragrance brushed past my nose as he entered, the crisp scent of orchids. I told him to fetch a small stool and sit directly across from me at the desk. Close enough that I could look up and see his face. Far enough that he wouldn't be able to read the details in my account books. The candlelight was warm and golden, spilling over his pale, jade-like skin. His pupils, lit by the flame, looked clear and bright, like dark jade submerged in water. He sat there quietly, back straight, like a carefully carved jade statue. Admiring a beauty by lamplight truly had its own charm. I would read a few lines of the ledger, then lift my eyes to look at him for a moment. Easy on the eyes. Surprisingly refreshing. After a quarter of an hour, I closed the ledger. Right on cue, Chen Yinyu stood and picked up the teapot to refill my cup. The tea was slightly hot, white steam curling upward. I took it and set it casually on the desk. Before he could withdraw his hand, I reached out and took hold of it. His fingers paused slightly, but he didn't pull away. Lowering my gaze, I leisurely ran my fingers over his hand a couple of times. Excellent quality. Distinct knuckles. Long, strong fingers. A little rough, though thin calluses at the joints, his palm not especially smooth. No matter. With some proper care in the future, that could be fixed. I kept holding his hand a little longer before letting go. Then I got up and rummaged through the display shelf nearby. I found a plain silk pouch, put 20 taels inside, and tossed it to him. You can head back and rest. Chen Yinyu caught it, weighing the pouch lightly between his fingers. The corner of his lips curved upward. Yes, miss. You should retire early as well. He stepped out, closing the door with quiet steadiness. I listened as his footsteps faded down the corridor. Starting tomorrow, I thought, I should carry some loose silver on me. Can't be scrambling for a money pouch every single time. 04. The next day, I took Xun An to meet my father. In the study, my father was standing before a calligraphy scroll, sighing heavily. He was probably mourning the loss of his perfect son-in-law. Again, I didn't bother with pleasantries. I pointed directly at Chen Yinyu beside me. Father, this is the man I've chosen as my live-in husband. Chen Yinyu bowed properly. This junior, Chen Yinyu, greets Master Jin. His voice was clear, his posture respectful, without being servile. My father didn't respond. He simply let out a long sigh. I knew what that meant. The more a person lacks something, the more desperately he tries to make up for it. When he was young, my father had studied day and night for the imperial examinations. He took them 7 times and failed every single one. Disheartened, he turned to commerce instead, clawing his way up until he built this mountain of gold. He had money now, but that old thorn in his heart remained. So he scattered silver generously, sponsoring scholars wherever he could. He longed for someone to fulfill the official career he himself never achieved. Xun An, whose family once had a bit of prestige but had since fallen on hard times, was exactly his type. Well-read, decent-looking. More importantly, he carried that air of refined nobility my father had always coveted but never possessed. My father gave him silver, gave him a house. He practically treated him like a son. If he hadn't insisted on bringing Xun An in as a live-in son-in-law, I might have suspected he was some illegitimate child my father had fathered outside. Unfortunately, that so-called refined scholar who was supposed to rise through the ranks looked down on us and walked away. I didn't concern myself with what my father thought. Once I had formally introduced Chen Yinyu, that was enough to make it official. The wedding arrangements would be handled by the servants. I had no intention of fussing over it. Chen Yinyu was tactful. He didn't disturb me. Instead, he frequently lingered around my father's courtyard. At first, my father ignored him and refused to see him. Later, he allowed him inside. And later still, as I passed by the study, I heard my father's long-absent laughter drifting out from within. I paused for a moment. When I pushed the door open, my father was gesturing animatedly at a painting on the wall, fishing alone on a cold river. Expounding at length. Chen Yinyu stood slightly to the side, leaning in just a little, listening attentively. When he saw me enter, he lifted his gaze. His eyes were clear and gentle as he offered me a small smile. Master Jin's insights are truly unique. I've learned a great deal, he said sincerely, turning back to my father. My father stroked his beard, his face glowing with pleasure. I glanced at Chen Yinyu. Today he was wearing a moon-white scholar's robe. The fabric was fine brocade I had sent over just the other day. Clothes make the man. He looked even more upright and elegant in it. You two carry on, I said, tossing the words over my shoulder as I turned to leave. Behind me, I heard my father's voice, warm with laughter. Yinyu, come take a look at this one. Before we move into the wedding night, things are about to get sharper and far more entertaining. Watch closely how pride, jealousy, and calculated tenderness collide under red silk and candlelight. 05. The 8th day of the 4th lunar month, an auspicious day for marriage. The Jin family business was vast, and the guests poured in like clouds. Whether close to us or barely acquainted, everyone came to join the spectacle. Chen Yinyu's side, by contrast, was quiet. Just a few former classmates and 2 or 3 elders, barely enough to fill 2 tables. After the ceremony, I led him from table to table, offering toasts and introducing him to the family. Chen Yinyu usually wore plain shades of blue or green, tones that subdued the striking beauty in his features. Today was different. Clad in brilliant red, black hair bound with a jade crown. That trace of brilliance was no longer concealed. The wine had moistened his lips to a vivid crimson. The slight lift at the corners of his eyes gave him a kind of captivating elegance he never showed before. He followed half a step behind me, quiet and composed. I prompted him with names. He responded softly, raising his cup, answering with ease and flawless courtesy. After a full round, he hadn't made a single misstep. His bearing was not only proper, it was pleasing to the eye. Several elders who had initially scrutinized him softened after a few cups of wine, their expressions easing under his deft charm. He truly brought honor to me. We reached the table under the eastern corridor. That table was filled with scholars my father had sponsored. Out of courtesy and obligation, they had to attend. The entire table rose to congratulate us, smiling and laughing. Everyone stood, except Xun An. He remained seated. His fingers gripped his wine cup so tightly his knuckles turned white. His face was dark enough to drip water. I pretended not to notice. Raising my cup with a smile, I said, "Thank you all for honoring us with your presence." A humble toast to show my gratitude. The others echoed politely and drank. Xun An did not move. His gaze landed on Chen Yinyu, cold as ice. Chen Yinyu acted as if he felt nothing. He lifted his sleeve gracefully and refilled my empty cup. The movement was smooth and unhurried, his eyes lowered, docile as a painting. "Brother Sun." He finally looked up, voice calm. "Won't you have a drink?" Xun An let out a cold laugh. "Impressive tactics, Brother Chen," he said clearly, each word sharp. Living off a woman suits you well enough. The entire table fell silent. I traced the rim of my cup with my fingertips, my smile unchanged. Chen Yinyu smiled lightly as well. He tilted his head toward me, his breath brushing my ear. In a voice that sounded low but was perfectly audible to everyone, he asked, "Wife, is he here to cause trouble?" I replied at the same volume, "Not really. Just a dog barking." Chen Yinyu gave a soft, "Oh." He reached out and smoothed a stray lock of hair at my temple, though none was out of place. His fingertips were cool against my ear. He sighed, with just the right note of regret. I used to think Brother Sun was a gentleman of noble character. His gaze swept over Xun An's ashen face. He shook his head, voice sincere. Now I see he's just a pitiful man, jealous of other people's happiness. Xun An shot to his feet. The chair scraped harshly against the ground. He glared at us, chest heaving. That look. He seemed ready to tear Chen Yinyu apart. I stepped forward half a pace, positioning myself just enough to shield Chen Yinyu behind me. No words needed. I simply met Xun An's eyes calmly. After a long moment, the color drained from his face. Finally, he slammed his wine cup down and stormed off, sleeves whipping behind him. The sound of porcelain shattering rang sharply in the silence. Behind me, Chen Yinyu gently squeezed my hand. His fingers were cool, but there was reassurance in the pressure. I laced my fingers back through his and tightened my grip. Turning toward the hall full of guests, I raised my voice. "Everyone, please continue." Music resumed. The banquet returned to its lively clamor. 06. There were still a few business-related toasts to attend to, so I told him to return to the room first. After a moment's thought, I added, "Don't take off the wedding robe." He looked up, lantern light flickering in his eyes. He nodded without asking why. By the time I finished, half an hour had passed. When I pushed open the door, candlelight glowed warmly inside. He was indeed sitting obediently at the edge of the bed. His hair was damp, darkening a small patch of the red robe. It seemed he had bathed, then deliberately put the wedding attire back on. Very obedient. The ceremonial wine cups were set on the table. When he saw me, he stood and lifted the wine pot, filling 2 cups. As he handed one to me, his fingertips were still cool, with lingering moisture. "Wife." His voice was lower than usual, relaxed from the bath, the union wine. I accepted it. We crossed arms and drank. The wine was slightly spicy as it slid down my throat. He set the cup aside and looked at me. Candlelight flickered in his eyes, bright and dim in turns. He asked softly, "Wife, what do you like?" "Something gradual. Slow and steady." He paused, gaze lingering on my face. "Or something else?" I lifted my hand, brushing my fingers through his still damp hair, catching a half-dry strand and winding it lightly around my finger. His lashes fluttered slightly, but he let me do as I pleased. I leaned close to his ear, my breath grazing the edge of it. My voice dropped low, meant for him alone. "I like someone who knows how to serve." A quarter of an hour later, I lay back against the wedding bed layered in red brocade, my breathing not yet steady. Chen Yinyu knelt below the bed, his black hair slightly disheveled, a few damp strands clinging to his neck. His eyes were lowered, his expression unreadable, long lashes casting faint shadows beneath them. I released the hand that had unconsciously gripped his hair moments before. Leisurely, I smoothed his slightly messy strands back into place. I made a mental note to give matchmaker Wang an extra generous red envelope. Where had she found such a treasure? Worth every coin. After another moment, I lifted my foot and lightly nudged his shoulder. "That's enough." He stilled briefly, then looked up at me. His eyes were misted, that former clarity completely stirred apart, leaving only a shimmering, tidal softness. Like an ink orchid battered by rain, its petals nearly crushed. Chen Yinyu said nothing. He simply rose as told, beginning to loosen his robe. 07. I had another pouch of silver sent to matchmaker Wang. On top of that, I prepaid Chen Yinyu 1,500 taels. He held the fresh stack of banknotes between his fingers. When he looked up, his gaze deepened. "Wife, is this a bulk pre-order?" I gave a lazy hum in response, tapping my fingertip lightly against the table. "Keep up the good work." Over the next few days, I was pleasantly lightheaded, body and soul thoroughly satisfied. Chen Yinyu's professional skills were, without exaggeration, outstanding. Once he'd taken the money, he spared no effort in attending to me with meticulous care. One day, while I was balancing accounts at the trading house, a servant hurried in to report, "Master, young Master Sun requests an audience." My hand paused mid-stroke. It took me a moment to connect young Master Sun with Xun An. "Not seeing him," I said, lowering my head and continuing to check the figures. But raised voices soon sounded outside. The door was flung open with a bang, and Xun An strode in, face grim. The servant hurriedly apologized in panic. I waved him away. Xun An had a particular illness. He liked to play the saint. Back when he lived in the 3-courtyard estate my father had gifted him, dressed in cloud-patterned silk from our weaving house worth 1,000 taels a bolt, he still held his head high, claiming he cared nothing for fame or fortune. Now he wore a look of pained righteousness, saying he couldn't bear to see me go astray. My brush stilled midair. A drop of ink nearly stained the ledger. I looked up at him as though examining some rare curiosity. "You know exactly what kind of man Chen Yinyu is," he said, brows tightly drawn. "Greedy for profit, utterly lacking integrity. By taking him as your husband, you're willingly..." "Willingly what?" I cut in, my voice cooling. His Adam's apple bobbed. In the end, he didn't say the words. He only sighed heavily. "Even if you resent me for refusing the marriage, you shouldn't degrade yourself like this." I looked at him and suddenly laughed. "Young Master Sun." I rose slowly, bracing my hands on the desk and leaning forward slightly. "What makes you think I chose a husband just to spite you?" He froze. "And what makes you so certain that because you looked down on me, I must have sunk into the dust, so low that picking any random man means I'm disgracing myself?" A breeze swept in through the window, rustling the pages of the ledger. "Xun An." I straightened and brushed non-existent dust from my sleeve. "You think far too highly of yourself." His face turned pale, then green. His lips moved, but no sound came out. "I chose Chen Yinyu for a very simple reason." I walked around the desk and stopped in front of him. He was taller than I was, but I stood on the steps while he stood below. To meet my eyes, he had to look up. "He's far better than a hypocrite like you. Someone who wants profit, wants reputation, and still expects gratitude and admiration in return." Xun An's face went ashen. His knuckles turned white, but he couldn't form a proper rebuttal. In the end, he flicked his sleeve and threw down a line. "Jin Yu, you'll regret this sooner or later." Before storming off, I watched coldly as he disappeared behind the screen wall. "Steward," I called out. A man hurried in, bowing, sweat still beading at his temples. "Anyone who failed to stop him just now, replace them all," I said evenly, "and reclaim the residence the Sun family is living in." The steward hesitated, clearly uneasy. I shot him a glance. "If you think that's inappropriate, take it up with my father." After all, I was the one in charge now. He lowered his head even further. "Yes, master." He retreated quickly. I remained where I was. Outside, the sunlight poured down in sheets of gold. Still irritating. Not because of what Xun An had said, but because his intrusion had ruined the good mood I'd been in from thinking about Chen Yinyu. I decided to head home early. 08. When I returned, Chen Yinyu was in the courtyard practicing the qin. A few days ago, he'd told me he wanted to take lessons, using his own private savings, to learn singing and instrumental skills. I figure having some artistic talent would make it easier for him to please me, so I hired him the best tutor available. Now I stretched out on the chaise lounge in the courtyard. At a wave of my hand, a servant set down a small table of refreshments and withdrew silently. He asked what I wanted to hear. I told him to play whatever he liked. The music flowed like running water from his fingertips. I couldn't quite tell what the piece was meant to convey. But the spring sunlight, the beauty before me, and the breeze lifting the edge of his robe, it was undeniably pleasing to the eye. With my eyes closed, I let the music wash over me. The agitation Xun An had stirred up earlier gradually faded. When the piece ended, he rose and walked over. "Wife in a bad mood?" he asked, crouching beside me and looking up. Sharp of him. I didn't open my eyes. I just gave a soft Then, his voice gentled. "Would you like to hold my hand? Special price today, 15 taels." I couldn't help laughing and opened my eyes. The daylight reflected in his gaze, along with me. My eyes traveled over his face and settled on his slightly pale lips. On impulse, I reached out and lightly touched them with my fingertip. "What about a kiss?" I asked. His lashes fluttered, expression perfectly serious. "That's not on discount." His lips parted beneath my fingertip. Warm breath brushed against my skin. It no longer felt like I was touching his lips. It felt more like he was kissing my finger. I paused for a moment, then withdrew my hand with a teasing smile. Chun Gongzi's business sense is getting sharper by the day. He watched me quietly for a few seconds, then suddenly said, "But since wife isn't in a good mood today." Before he finished speaking, he leaned in and pressed a light, quick kiss to my lips. Like a dragonfly skimming water, touch and gone. Before I could react, he had already pulled back, a hint of triumph in his eyes. By the time I regained my senses, my hand had already grabbed his collar. I tugged him back down. Our noses were nearly touching, our breaths mingling. He blinked, voice slightly muffled, feigning innocence. "Wife, that one just now was complimentary. Consider it a free gift for your bad mood." "Oh." I met his gaze at such close range. "I'll pay extra." 09. In the end, I'd kissed Chen Yinyu's lips until they were swollen. His lips were naturally pale to begin with. Now they were red and puffy, like they'd been brushed with rouge. The box of rouge on my dressing table would probably suit him very well. I should try it on him someday. The thought alone inexplicably lifted my mood. So much so that when Madame Xun came storming to my door, I was still able to greet her with a pleasant smile. She wailed and cried in my reception hall, lamenting how hard life was for a widow and her son. She accused the Jin family of bullying them with our power, claiming that taking back the residence was tantamount to driving them to their deaths. I slowly lifted the lid of my teacup, waiting until she finished her performance before looking up. "Finished?" She froze. I set down my cup. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried clearly. "The residence belongs to my family. I'm taking it back." "Is that a problem?" It was as though someone had seized her by the throat. Her face flushed red, and she launched into another round of "We've suffered so much." And, "How heartless you are." In the midst of the commotion, my father hurried in. The moment he saw the scene, his brows knotted tightly. Madame Xun looked as if she'd seen her savior and rushed toward him, reaching for his sleeve. My father looked troubled. He glanced at me. There was disapproval in his eyes, and that old, habitual desire to smooth things over. Was there any need to make it so unpleasant? Just because the marriage didn't work out doesn't mean we had to. I didn't let him finish. I gestured directly to the steward. "See her out." This time, the steward didn't hesitate. He brought 2 capable matrons. Half inviting, half escorting. They removed the still protesting Madame Xun from the hall. At last, the room fell quiet. My father looked at me and sighed heavily. "Must you go this far? Now you've offended them completely." I stood and smoothed my skirt. "I don't like him," I said evenly, meeting his gaze. "Is that a problem?" My father choked on his words. His lips moved, but in the end, nothing came out. He simply rubbed the jade ring on his thumb, looking at me with a complicated expression. I knew exactly what he was thinking.
10.
I am his only child. Not because he loved my late mother so deeply that he refused to remarry. It was because he couldn't have children. The physician had said his essence was weak, offspring would be difficult. After more than a decade of prayers and medicinal tonics, he was lucky to have me at all. And I wasn't even a son. But one was better than none. So he raised me like a son. He kept me by his side, personally teaching me how to use the abacus, read ledgers, conduct business, and read people. His greatest wish in life was for me to guard this family enterprise. And then recruit a son. To marry in someone who could uphold the family name. For that cultivation of his which allowed me to smoothly take over the business, I acknowledge my debt. But deep down, he favored men. Xun An was a man. A scholarly man. In him, my father saw the version of himself he had once longed to be. His sponsorship of Xun An carried a subtle sense of superiority and compensation, but also an instinctive bias, man to man. He believed Xun An was one of his own. A member of the brotherhood, so to speak. Even when Xun An and his family openly and secretly looked down on us merchants, my father thought it harmless. Because that was the proper aloofness of a talented scholar. Understandable. Tolerable. Something that could be reformed. Over time. He even believed I shouldn't mind such trifles because men care about their pride. After all, they were scholars. They were men. 11. My father still stood there, lips moving as if he wanted to say more. I didn't need to hear it to know what it would be. We'd argued about this before. The worst time was 2 months ago. When I still refused to agree, he secretly went to the Xun family to propose marriage on my behalf, hoping to bring Xun An in as a son-in-law. And what happened? That refined scholar looked down on my money-stained self. My father received a thorough rebuff as well. The matter spread, inviting gossip and affecting business to some extent. Back then, he had looked at me the same way he did now. Disappointment tinged with misplaced resentment. As though I had cost him that imagined male heir who would fulfill his abandoned examination dreams. At that time, I had still spoken gently, urging him to think it through. Was he really willing to fall out with me over a man? But now I only felt weary, too tired even to keep up the polite facade. If you're so capable, go to the Xun family and let your precious son support you in old age. I tossed out that line and walked away. Behind me, I heard his ragged breathing, furious and indignant. As for that ridiculous male pride of his, who cares? 13. The days that followed were calm. Perhaps my words had truly struck a nerve. My father didn't bring up the Xun family again. The affairs of the trading house were complicated. I was busy from morning till night. Chen Yinyu continued to fulfill his duties. Obediently. Occasionally, when I rested, he would play the qin. Or, when I was rubbing my temples over the ledgers, he would wordlessly offer a cup of tea at just the right temperature. He no longer mentioned those clearly priced intimacies. Instead, when I was exhausted, I would sometimes beckon him over. He would come and sit quietly beside me, letting me lean against him, or simply stare at his face in a daze. I still paid him, but he no longer seemed eager to settle accounts like before. He accepted the silver calmly when I offered it, his expression composed. One afternoon, I woke from a nap to find him sitting by the window reading. Sunlight filtered through the lattice, scattering soft patterns across his profile. His long lashes were lowered, serene as a painting. Suddenly, I remembered what Xun An had said that day. Greedy for profit. Utterly lacking in integrity. I rose and walked over, my shadow falling across the page in his hands. He looked up, questioning. I reached out, took the book from him, and tossed it aside. Chen Yinyu. Leaning down, I braced my hands on the arms of his chair, boxing him in. Is there nothing you truly want? He paused briefly, then smiled. Isn't wife already giving it to me? Other than money. Is there nothing else you want? Other than money. He repeated, looking up at me. The habitual flattery and meekness faded from his eyes, revealing a clear, earnest light beneath. Then I hope wife remains just as she is now, surrounded by mountains of gold and silver, steady as a mountain. It was cleverly said, yet strangely comforting. I lowered my head and kissed his slightly cool lips. Sweet talker. Only the truth. He returned the kiss, his voice muffled between our touching lips. 14. A few days later, the steward came to report. The Xun family had already moved out of the residence. Word was they had rented a small courtyard in the west of the city and were living rather frugally. I merely nodded when I heard. He hesitated, then added, "As for Master, he sent someone to deliver some silver to them." My hand paused mid-stroke. A blot of ink spread into a dark bloom on the ledger. "I see," I said lightly. That evening at dinner, I cited poor business as the reason and cut 60% of my father's monthly allowance. He froze, bowl in hand. A piece of braised pork hovered at the tips of his chopsticks, forgotten. "Business is bad?" His tone rose, full of suspicion. Without changing expression, I stirred the rice in my bowl. Trade along several waterways has been affected. Cash flows a bit tight." My father opened his mouth, glanced at me, then at Chen Yinyu, who was eating quietly. In the end, he swallowed his words and let out a heavy sigh. Whether he believed me or not, I didn't care. It was a warning. But someone truly did believe it. At first, Chen Yinyu wasn't home much. When I returned in the afternoons, he was often nowhere to be seen. If I asked, the servants would say the young master had gone out to meet friends. I suspected nothing. After all, he went to the tea house under my name. Each day, the manager submitted a detailed list: what tea was ordered, what pastries were served, whom he met, everything written clearly. He went for 2 or 3 days in a row, returning only at dusk. That evening, after bathing, I was combing out my hair before the mirror when he emerged from the washroom, hair still damp. He went to retrieve his treasured wooden box, sat at the bedside, and began carefully counting money. The box held his private savings, mostly banknotes and bits of silver. Sometimes, when I had spare cash on hand, I would casually drop it in there for him. In the candlelight, he lowered his gaze, fingertips slowly passing over each note. He counted the scattered silver beneath with the same focus one might devote to sacred texts. After a long while, he looked up, dark hair framing a neck made all the paler by contrast. "Adding what wife usually gives me, after expenses, there's about 2,000 taels left." I hummed, waiting for him to continue. He occasionally calculated his savings. I was used to it. "I've entrusted part of it to be sent back to the clan for a few elders' support," he explained. I nodded. I knew. His parents had died early. Only a distant elder in the clan had shown him any kindness. Sending silver back each month was something I had permitted. As I was thinking this over, he suddenly placed the entire wooden box into my hands. It was heavy. I stared at him. Chen Yinyu looked at me, eyes clear, his tone rarely so earnest. "If the trading house is short on cash for the moment, what I have isn't much, but it may help in an emergency." He paused, lowering his voice. "If it's still not enough, I can borrow some from a few classmates whose families are better off." I looked at him and said nothing. When I didn't respond, he seemed afraid I didn't believe him. He hurriedly added, eyes carrying a kind of resolute sincerity, "I can reduce my own expenses further. Food and clothing don't need to be so good. And the Qin lessons, I can stop those too. That would save a sum." Seeing him so determined to tighten his belt and immediately share hardship with me, I froze for a moment, then couldn't help but turn my head and laugh softly. What sort of business was this? Not only did he empty his entire savings, he even planned to borrow money to subsidize me. I casually made up an excuse, saying recent payments had arrived and the household didn't lack his small amount. Chen Yinyu listened without arguing, only giving a soft Yet he still pressed the banknotes into my hands. "Since they were mine," he said, "I ought to keep them." 15. In the days that followed, something about him was clearly different. That meticulous, striving, professional enthusiasm of his seemed doused with water, wilted. He no longer took the initiative to mention those clearly priced intimacies. After our nightly closeness, when I habitually reached for the banknotes, he gently pressed down on my hand. "Let's skip it today." His voice was slightly hoarse, his face turned to the side. In the candlelight, his long lashes cast a shadow beneath his eyes. I arched a brow. "What? Raising your rates. He shook his head. After a moment of silence, he said, No. Then why? I rarely had such patience to press for answers. My fingertip tapped lightly against his slightly damp palm. Don't worry. The household truly isn't short of money. It's not that. It's not the same thing.
He cut in.
Then what is it? He fell silent, rolling over to turn his back to me. The outline of his shoulder blades was clear beneath the thin night robe. Just think of it as, once in a while, I'd like to do it without seeking silver. The words sounded novel. If not for silver, then for what? If not for money, then it must be for the heart. His unusual behavior. Could it be he had truly set his heart on me? The thought startled even me. Then I found it absurd. Between us, payment and goods were settled cleanly and clearly, the most uncomplicated arrangement. If something else were mixed in, it would lose its elegance. Yet as he lay there with his back to me, his shoulders taut, he somehow seemed stubbornly pitiful. I reached out. My fingertips slipped to the slightly open collar at the back of his robe, touching the warmth of his skin. Chen Yinyu, I said softly. Turn around. He was silent for a moment, then slowly complied. In the candlelight, his lashes looked faintly damp, his lips flushed red. The marks I'd left earlier had yet to fade. Without seeking silver, my fingers slid along the side of his neck to his jaw. I lifted his face, forcing him to meet my gaze. Then tell me, what do you seek? His eyes flickered, as if 1,000 emotions surged beneath. In the end, he only lowered his gaze and gently grasped my wandering hand, pressing it against his cheek. I seek for wife to be happy, he said, voice low and rough. As long as wife is happy, anything is fine. For my happiness? Was he changing tactics, thinking I'd fall for this? Or had the heart that ought to seek only money strayed off course?
I didn't ask again.
I turned over, pulled the brocade quilt around me, and closed my eyes. Behind me, it grew quiet. Only our light breathing remained. After a while, a faint rustle at my side. He edged closer, cautiously. His movements were gentle, tentative. Then a slightly cool fingertip hooked around my little finger.
Just holding it.
The slightest, almost negligible pressure. Like a newborn creature, timidly extending the tip of its claw to brush against the one it had chosen as its master. I kept my eyes closed and did not move. Sometimes, even the most careful plans are disrupted, not by logic or reason, but by the quiet, persistent weight of the heart. When emotions start creeping into what was meant to be a straightforward arrangement, every decision feels heavier, every moment more charged. Tonight, the lines between business and feeling blur, and Chen Yinyu's intentions reveal themselves in a way that no ledger could ever account for.
16.
Chen Yinyu liked me. That thought was like a fine thorn, pricking the heart. Not painful, but uncomfortable. Business was business. Silver exchanged for goods, neat and clean. Once feelings were involved, it was like perfect silk stained with grease, unsightly, troublesome to handle. With affection came concerns, expectations, vulnerabilities. If in the future he grew arrogant with favor, demanding more, would I give it or not? If jealousy arose from his emotions, interfering with my decisions, would I tolerate it or not? Just thinking of the possible entanglements and struggles gave me a headache. Truly a miscalculation. I should have known that spending day and night together, skin brushing against skin, even a cat or dog would develop affection, let alone a living, breathing person. I thought about it for 7 days. Drafted my reasoning 7 or 8 times. Central idea. If he seeks money, I welcome it. If he seeks the heart, I refuse. If he knew his mistake and didn't change, this transaction would end here. That evening, I returned home, my mind brimming with arguments. Chen Yinyu sat under the window, reading by candlelight. Hearing my footsteps, he looked up. His gaze fell on me in the dim light. Wife is back, he said, setting down his book and rising to meet me. The cold, prepared words I had rehearsed suddenly stuck in my throat. I looked at his lowered brows, the pale skin at the nape of his neck. The icy lines I had drafted were inexplicably lodged in my throat. "Sit," I said, settling myself opposite him first. He sat as instructed, eyes quietly fixed on my face, carrying a faint, almost imperceptible curiosity. I cleared my throat, trying to keep my tone even. "Chen Yinyu, we need to talk." "Please, wife,"
he said.
I gazed into his clear eyes. The advice I had prepared twisted on my tongue and, when it came out, sounded entirely different. "You've been acting strangely lately." His lashes flickered, but he didn't reply. I continued, trying to steer the conversation back on track. "We agreed from the start. Silver exchanged for goods, neat and clean. You seek money, I seek satisfaction. Isn't that enough?" He remained silent, simply watching me. Being observed so intently made me slightly uneasy. My voice softened, nearly coaxing. "Better to seek silver than the heart. People's feelings change. What I like today, I may dislike tomorrow. But silver doesn't. It's tangible. Hold it tight. It's yours. The sea of suffering is endless. Turn back and find the shore. Don't stray." I spoke from the heart, convinced I had done all I could. Chen Yinyu suddenly let out a light, quiet laugh. "Finish speaking, wife?" he asked. I nodded. He leaned forward slightly. Candlelight danced in his eyes. "What you said is right,"
he said softly.
"Seeking the heart is indeed less reliable than money." My fingers absent-mindedly twisted my sleeve, waiting for him to continue. "But if I truly like wife," he paused, holding my gaze, "doesn't that bring some benefit to you? I would serve you even more wholeheartedly, without expecting money." My heart skipped a beat. Without expecting money? Those are the most dangerous. Chen Yinyu seemed to see through my thoughts, the corner of his mouth curling slightly. "I've seen too many men and women. Love is the cruelest of all. I'm a living example, aren't I?" He laughed wryly. "Knowing I shouldn't, yet I dive in anyway." He reached out, fingertips lightly brushing the back of my hand on the table. "Seeking the heart is like drawing a prison. Willingly handing the rope to wife's hands. What is there to fear, wife?" I looked into his eyes. They reflected me. "I may not want to bind you," I said. "It's not you binding me," he corrected. "I drew the prison myself. If one day you find it burdensome or tiresome, just say so. I will leave myself. Never entangle you, never cause you any trouble." He lowered his eyes briefly, then lifted them again, gaze earnest and calm. "Wife need not worry. Whether the road ahead is suffering or fortune, it is my choice, Chen Yinyu's choice. All of this concerns you not at all." 17. His words repeated in my mind. They sounded almost reasonable.
"Draw a prison. Willingly. Hand the rope to me." It sounded like I held all the advantage. But was it easy to hold? I lay back, listening to the even rhythm of his breathing. He seemed asleep. But what if not? What if, later, this affection twisted into desire for more? Wouldn't that be troublesome? I suddenly sat up, reached over, pushing the person beside me lightly. "Chen Yinyu." He hummed, groaning, half asleep, opening his eyes. They were heavy with drowsiness, misted as he gazed at me. I fixed my eyes on him and asked directly, "Will you cause me trouble?" He hesitated, sleep seemingly giving way to awareness. After a pause, he turned to face me, voice low but clear. "No."
"My delight in wife is my own. I've laid it bare. How I serve you will remain the same. I will uphold the rules, without fail. I'm not some adolescent boy who can't live without romance. I know the principles, won't be reckless, and will never trouble you." His tone was calm, tinged with post-sleep laziness, yet carried an inexplicable certainty. I looked at him. In the moonlight, his gaze was clear, unflinching. The lingering doubt and calculation in my heart suddenly settled.
"Yes."
"That's more like it." I lay down again, pulled the quilt over us, and patted him. "Sleep now."
18.
Since the day he confessed his heart, Chen Yinyu had become unbearably clingy. Whenever I handled business, he would drag a small stool to sit across from me, silent, quietly shelling pine nuts. Once a small dish was full, he'd push it toward me. He stared at me with eager eyes, like a cat waiting for praise. Whenever I got up to fetch something, he would follow, shadowing me half a step behind. If I suddenly stopped and turned, he would bump straight into me, naturally looping his arms around my waist, chin resting at the hollow of my neck, rubbing gently twice. The air between us smelled faintly of crisp orchid. Chen Yinyu. I couldn't help but push at his shoulders. Don't you have anything else to do? He shook his head, earnest. Serving wife is a matter of utmost importance. The sweetness of this burden was almost too much, so I sent him away. Go, go, go. Find your classmates to have tea, and listen to music. Don't disturb my peace here. He blinked, seemingly reluctant. But seeing my firm expression, he could only respond slowly with a yes, turning back for a glance every few steps as he walked off. Finally, quiet returned to my ears. About an hour later, familiar light footsteps approached outside. The curtain lifted, and Chen Yinyu walked in, excitement practically spilling from his eyebrows and eyes. Wife, guess what I just heard at the tea house? His voice carried laughter. Before I could guess, he leaned forward, practically pressing against my ear, letting both warmth and gossip pour in. He told me that the latest imperial examination appointments were out. Xun An had placed in the top 3 ranks and would be sent to serve elsewhere. He had always prided himself on being aloof and refined, seeing himself as free from worldly dust, confident that his talents would earn him a desirable posting. But the ways of officialdom required personal maneuvering, which he had never bothered with and scorned outright. So the official appointment turned out to be a remote, impoverished county where even birds rarely visited. High mountains, long roads, miasma in the air. Rumor had it that the previous office holder had fallen ill and died. He had borrowed money from a few well-off classmates, originally promising repayment in half a month, but repeatedly delayed. When his classmates learned of his appointment, they came to demand repayment. He didn't pay them back. Instead, he assumed a look of lofty refinement, scolding them for caring only about money, claiming they had lost the dignity of a scholar. One fiery-tempered classmate even flew into a rage, resulting in a ridiculous scuffle. I listened and couldn't help but smile. He recounted these old incidents vividly, classmates inviting him to banquets, which he declined with "I disdain such socializing." Yet he secretly composed sour poems mocking their flattery and scheming. When the others, tired of his cold shoulder, distanced themselves, he ran to his teachers, complaining he was ostracized for his high principles. I snorted and interrupted. He had even more tricks in his youth. Xun An would say, "A woman's worth is in virtue. If she has no talent, she should support her husband, raise children, cook, and manage the household." Yet when he saw real ladies managing domestic affairs, he'd frown again. I imitated his lofty, disdainful tone, shaping my voice. Trapped all day in the kitchen, no talent, no virtue, speechless and bland, truly not a suitable match. Chen Yinyu froze for a moment, then flopped onto my lap, shoulders shaking as he chuckled muffledly. This man, he laughed, dragging the last syllable, was always someone who wanted everything. Demanding women to be obedient yet talented, pleasing him, while still holding onto his sense of superiority. I reached out, fingers twisting a lock of his black hair. Whatever, it's up to him to speak. Outside, dusk deepened. Lanterns under the eaves lit one by one. We curled up in the warm light, comfortable from head to toe. 19. Chen Yinyu's clinginess, though harmless, still distracted me. I decided he needed something meaningful to do. He couldn't spend his life orbiting me. Household servants were abundant. There were no trivial tasks for him. And business matters? Absolutely out of bounds. This, we both understood. That day, seeing him daydream by the window over an idle book, I tapped the table. Chen Yinyu, I called. Do you want to return to the academy? Their academy was flexible. The spring examination wasn't mandatory. Students could remain if they felt unprepared or leave for other pursuits. Chen Yinyu had felt his learning insufficient, hadn't signed up, and chosen graduation. Yet no sooner had he taken off the scholar's robe than the matchmaker brought him to me, making him a son-in-law of the Jin family. He lifted his eyes from the book, a hint of confusion. Return to the academy?
Why?
To prepare for next year's spring examination, I said matter-of-factly. At my words, his expression froze instantly. I was even more surprised than he was. You've studied for over a decade, enduring hardship, and you don't want to earn a title to honor your family? Even as a son-in-law, having an official post was a world apart. Chen Yinyu was silent for a moment, expression complex, staring at me. He slowly said, "Wife, I think ranking on the gene list may not be as stable or practical as living off your family's support." Seeing his serious expression on that handsome face, I was at a loss for words. He fully embraced the idea of living on my family's support. He argued confidently, "Since I eat at the Jin family's table, I should guard their household. Serving you well is my duty. How could I be distracted and think of leaving?" "I don't." I interrupted him. "Set aside me, just for yourself. Do you want to take the exam or not?" He paused. What scholar, after over a decade of study, would truly have no desire for official recognition, no wish to stand proudly at court? Chen Yinyu's fingers curled unconsciously. I had once traced those hands carefully. The slight calluses on his knuckles were from years of writing. He tried to speak again, but I cut him off. "Take the exam," I said simply. "The family has money. If you fail, I'll support you." His lashes twitched, no response. I slowly added the second part. "If you succeed, I'll boast that my husband is an official. How prestigious." The moment I said this, Chen Yinyu suddenly looked up. He gazed at me. The light in his eyes flickered. He reached out and gently hooked my fingers. "Good," he said. "I'll take the exam." I contacted the academy, used some funds, and sent him back in. Life changed. In the mornings, he rode with me in the carriage. He wore a scholar's robe, I wore brocade. At the academy gate, we parted ways. I lifted the curtain, watching him enter the vermilion gates. His back was straight, not as if heading to study, but as if marching into a hard battle. In the evening, the carriage returned punctually to the mountain gate. He stepped out in the dusk, climbing into the carriage, often carrying the scent of ink or several books.
20.
Spring passed into autumn. Cold yielded to heat, and in the blink of an eye, a year had gone by. The night before the spring imperial exam, he tossed and turned. I couldn't sleep and kicked him lightly. "Where's my flatbread?" He grabbed my ankle, voice muffled in the night. "Wife, what if I don't pass?" I snorted. "If you don't pass, come back and keep living off our family." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "And what if I do pass, but can't stay in the capital and have to serve in some remote, desolate place?" I turned to face him. In the dark, I couldn't make out expressions, only felt the warmth of his breath. I reached out, touching his tense back, patting gently. He relaxed slightly and leaned in, resting his forehead at the hollow of my shoulder. "If it's really somewhere far..." I hesitated, fingers twirling a strand of his hair. "Then we'll probably have to try sending messages like migrating geese." Chen Yinyu's breath caught. He hugged me tighter.
"No,"
he murmured. "Wherever you are, I am there." Holding fast to his belief that husband and wife must never be apart, he placed second class in the middle rank, securing his stay in the capital. My father was grinning ear to ear, pacing the hall with joy. "Excellent, excellent, Yinyu. Truly making the family proud." Many students he had previously sponsored now had connections at the Ministry of Personnel. He asked Chen Yinyu where he wanted to go, Hanlin Academy or elsewhere. The family could provide some leverage. Chen Yinyu thought carefully, and when he looked up, his gaze was clear. Few duties, idle work, plenty of money, close to home. My father withdrew his hand, putting it behind his back. "Well," he cleared his throat, "our family can't quite exert that much influence. In the end, only the few duties idle, close to home." Condition was met. Hamlin Academy, managing texts, organizing old documents. a mere 15-minute walk from home. As for salary, the first time he submitted his stipend, I asked, "Why leave me the leftovers?" Chen Yinyu shook his head, struggling. "Wife, this is all of it." I received it with unusual solemnity. Not easy, truly not easy. At night, when I habitually reached for him, he stiffened slightly but didn't move away. Then, unexpectedly, he said in the dark, touching my hand, 40 taels. Kissing 100 taels. Sharing a bed, 200 taels. I froze, raising an eyebrow. Excuse me? Since he confessed his heart, such intimacies had never been monetized. All his necessities were arranged by me, with some cash given monthly. He would save it and send a round amount to his elder relatives. Chen Yinyu rolled over to face me. Since entering Hanlin, colleagues have each hosted me for 3 gatherings. If I don't return the favor, it would be improper. He paused, sighed, a hint of grievance in his tone. My stipend, you've seen it. Truly, it's not much. I couldn't hold back my laughter. So? He leaned close, brushing my ear with his nose, breath warm. So, I must return to my old ways, supplement the household. Wife, please, can you attend to business a bit? Before the words were out, his lips pressed to mine. Between tender embraces, I gasped, pushing him lightly. Chen Yinyu, you're now an imperial official. He chuckled low, teeth and lips lingering at my neck. Amichem. So now the rates have increased. The end. Chen Yinyu POV Extra.
1.
In this life, Chen Yinyu seemed never to be free from money. As a child, he would hide behind the door, listening to his parents quarrel over coins. His mother's sobs, his father's sighs, the sharp clink of copper coins hitting the table. Later, he knelt in front of his parents' spirit tablets, listening to relatives argue over his inheritance. Who would have an extra bowl of rice? Who would occupy one less room? Everything calculated clearly. As he grew older, he ran errands for himself, copying books, writing on behalf of others, even running messages. His fingers stained with ink, all in exchange for a few warm copper coins. He understood his own position perfectly. His lifelong goal was to marry into a respectable household. Stable, worry-free. So when he heard the eldest Miss Jean was seeking a husband, he went.
2.
But before that, he had actually met Jin Yu 3 times. The first meeting was shortly after he was admitted to the academy. The Jean family was the largest sponsor of the school, and the eldest Miss Jean occasionally came to inspect. That afternoon, he had just finished reviewing his books and was strolling alone in the corridor. At a corner, he unexpectedly ran into a group of people. A teacher in front, accompanied by a girl in fine silk. Her attire was lavish, her features carrying the calm detachment of privilege. Yinyu, just in time, the teacher called warmly. This is Miss Jin Yu of the Jean family. Miss Jean, this is our new student, Chen Yinyu. He bowed politely, hands clasped. Student Chen Yinyu greets Miss Jean. Proper posture, impeccable manners. Jin Yu nodded slightly, her gaze lingering on his face for a moment, serene as water. Mr. Chen, she said evenly, without fluctuation. And that was it. They passed by each other. He caught a faint, delicate fragrance, clean, refined, and rare. He stood still, listening as footsteps receded. The teacher smiled and said to her, "This boy's talent is excellent, though his family background is modest." The rest of the words drifted away with the wind. Not long after, he received notice from the academy. He was granted a full scholarship by the Jean family, tuition and fees completely covered. 3. The second meeting came on a rainstorm that caught him off guard. He was copying books at a bookstore for a few copper coins. On his way back, the sky darkened suddenly, and rain poured down. Carrying a bundle of books, he hurried under a roof eave, seeking a safer place to avoid the rain. Just as he stopped and shook the drops from his clothes, he looked up. Through the heavy curtain of rain, their eyes met. Across the street, a girl was stepping out of a silk merchant shop. In elegant clothes, graceful posture, surrounded by attendants. The rain blurred her features, but her gaze was clear and calm, sweeping casually over the street. Her eyes didn't linger. She turned, helped into a spacious carriage. The eaves of the carriage bore the unmistakable emblem of the Jin family. He withdrew his gaze, staring at the torrent before him. Moments later, an attendant ran up, holding an oil paper umbrella. "From my lady," the servant said, then turned and left without a word. He gripped the smooth handle, which still carried a faint, familiar scent. Looking up, the carriage slowly departed, wheels splashing through puddles, disappearing into the rainy haze. He walked back to the academy, the umbrella large enough to keep him completely dry.
4.
The third time was shortly after that fool Xun An caused a citywide scandal by refusing an arranged marriage. That year, the academy's graduating students were to invite several prominent merchants from the city to witness the ceremony, as was customary. The Jin family, naturally, was among them. Their invitation had been sent months in advance. Chen Yinyu sat near the front, watching Jin Yu step onto the stage. She paused on the platform, eyes sweeping steadily over the students in blue robes below, giving a slight nod. "Today, I am honored to see so many pillars of our dynasty in the making,"
she said.
"The Jin family business hopes to collaborate with talented scholars in the future." Having delivered her formalities, she spoke no more, leaving the head of the academy to continue. Below, Chen Yinyu absent-mindedly twisted the corner of a book page. He watched her expression, calm as ever, as if Xun An's farce had never happened. Of course, the eldest Miss Jin had seen every kind of spectacle. She would not lose face over a few sour remarks from a poor scholar. His gaze shifted slightly, landing on Xun An in the front row. Back straight, chin raised, still that lofty, aloof expression. In this context, however, it looked ridiculous. Chen Yinyu snorted inwardly. In this world, normal people outnumber the strange. Xun An's behavior, to anyone with eyes, was no different from madness. He wanted the Jin family's money to study and secure his future, yet despised their coins as if they tainted his refinement. Wanting everything, wanting too much. There's no such thing as a free lunch. He returned his gaze to Jin Yu on the stage, thinking of holding on to her. The thought made him freeze for a moment. Then he laughed softly, shaking his head. The Jin family's threshold was high. He, with nothing to offer, could never reach it. He looked down at his own worn, whitened blue robe sleeves. Little did he know, within 2 days, the news that the Jin family was seeking a son-in-law spread through the city like wings. Chen Yinyu had been staring out at a half-wilted orchid outside the window when the gossip reached him, heart suddenly leaping. He slowly turned his head. The sunlight fell just right on his slightly widened pupils. Well, what a coincidence. Sometimes love sneaks in quietly, disguised as practicality. Chen Yinyu thought he was only chasing money, but life has a way of showing you what really matters. Let's see how his thoughts shift as he realizes what being a husband
truly means. 5.
At first, Chen Yinyu really only cared about money. When he set the price he deemed proper, he calculated everything clearly in his mind. A family like the Jins would only take a son-in-law for the moment's convenience. It wouldn't last. He had to stockpile silver while he was favored, and pick up useful skills to protect himself, so that if he were ever cast out, he wouldn't be left empty-handed. That's why when he said he wanted to learn the zither, it wasn't entirely an excuse. Another skill would mean that even if he left the Jin family, he could teach at a music hall or give lessons to wealthy children. He could still earn a living. In his mind, this was a business, calculated down to the last coin. But Jin Yu was entirely different. He had seen how decisive she was with accounts, drawing a red circle and immediately determining the allocation of thousands of taels. He had seen her handle difficult merchants with icy precision, forcing them into anxious submission with just a few words. But most of the time, he saw Jin Yu in ways others could not. She would brighten when discussing a major deal, her eyes curving like a mischievous cat, offering him a piece of translucent sugar cake. When exhausted, she would flop over the desk, hair slightly disheveled, mumbling, "These accounts make my head spin." Even when he saw this, she did not scold him, just gave him a lazy glance, as gentle as a feather brushing one's heart. She was like a magnet, drawing his gaze without effort. At first, it was admiration for the mistress' decisiveness and generosity. Later, his eyes lingered for reasons he didn't even notice himself. He began noting her favorite snacks, her rest habits, what caused her frowns. These subtle observations had long exceeded professional courtesy, until she mentioned the family's silver flow was tight. Chen Yinyu believed her. He hadn't seen gold mountains collapse, but he had seen fallen households. In one night, everything could change. 6. Those days, he and a few friends huddled together, analyzing with all seriousness. One said, "I heard the recent grain shipments have been disrupted. The Jin family's business is huge. Surely they're affected." Another said, "The taller the tree, the more it draws envy. Maybe someone set obstacles in secret." The more they spoke, the more it seemed the Jin family might be in real trouble. By his old nature, if he learned the mistress was in danger, he would first think of a backup plan. At least keep the money safe, that was his foundation. But after turning it over in his mind a few times, he fixed on one fact. They had already been married. The legal status was established. The deal may have been a business at first, but the word husband and wife was real. He had never seen a truly loving couple. His parents quarreled daily over money, and the clan had many resentful pairs. He had read plenty of proverbs. Birds of a feather, when disaster comes, each flies separately. But he didn't want to fly. Not only did he not want to fly, he wanted to pour every last coin he had into helping her. Every little bit counted. 7. His friends wanted to ask what he planned to do, but when they turned to him, seeing his dazed, straight-staring eyes, their hearts sank.
Doomed.
This man was already fallen. Friend Ding cautiously asked, "Yinyu, you wouldn't be thinking?" Chen Yinyu snapped back to himself, tone unusually calm. "We are married." Friend E nearly choked. "Wait, didn't you say it was just silver for the marriage? A son-in-law's status can't be real." Chen Yinyu lifted his eyes, gaze clear as spring water. "How is it not real? The marriage contract is fake? Heaven and earth are fake?" He paused, each word deliberate. "We are husband and wife. Legally and by all rules." At this, the room fell silent. Who here didn't know Chen Yinyu's old ways? He had made a career out of advising friends on love, charging by the session. Analyzing others' relationships, he gave meticulous advice, based entirely on the coin offered. But now it was his turn. Friend Bing wailed. "Yinyu, wake up. Even if the Jin family were in real trouble, your money wouldn't even make a ripple." Chen Yinyu, however, seemed to find theoretical justification, growing more resolute. Normal couples share hardships. She may face difficulties now. I am her husband. Isn't it my duty to help? Friend Jia tried reasoning. Fine, for the sake of sentiment. But if you give all you have now, she may remember your help. But later, when she has recovered, will she feel resentment? In a prominent family, reputation matters most. Xun An shook his head. She's not that kind of person. How do you know? I live with her day and night. I naturally know. He continued. Besides, aid in hardship builds the deepest bond. If she rises again, she will remember my help. The group. The strategist descends, 1 against 5. The core idea was simple. We are married. I must take care of her. No matter how his friends bombarded him, he remained unshaken. The once golden military advisor, who had enlightened countless lovesick souls, now had completely fallen into his own heart, irretrievable.
8.
He carried that burning desire to support the household back to the residence. Yet the house was unchanged, servants orderly, without a hint of looming chaos. He felt some relief and a little doubt. That evening, he mustered the courage to bring out the wooden box and voice the long-brewing plan to overcome difficulties together. Jin Yu froze, then turned her head, low laughter spilling out. He watched her shoulders tremble as she laughed, realizing at last. Of course, the Jin family was a mighty tree, deeply rooted. His imagined stormy scenarios were laughable. Embarrassment? Yes, like a poor man holding a few coins, claiming he could help the emperor build a palace. Disappointment? A little, like a light brush against a sharp point. In this life, he would never catch up to her pace. Gold mountains? He could never earn them. Shared hardship? She didn't need it. The secret, unexamined wishes to stand beside her, extinguished the moment they surfaced. But the loss was fleeting. Gratitude surged instead, washing away the faint sting. Thankfully, he thought. Thankfully, she was strong, invincible. Thankfully, she would never endure the rain-soaked hardships he had seen in childhood. Never fret over a few taels, never suffer a moment's temporary straits. He would rather remain merely her ornament, a pastime purchased with her wealth, than see her fall to dust, tainted by any sorrow. She deserved always to remain radiant, secure as mountains of silver. He thought. In this life, he likely would not share hardships with her. Then he would simply share. In another way. Eat her food, live in her house, be supported by her. Not bad, he thought. He lifted his eyes toward her. Under the candlelight, her features were still bright, a lingering smile on her lips. Chen Yinyu drew a quiet breath, carefully hiding that sense of relief. To see her smile like this, that was enough. In this life, that would do. And that's how a woman they called money-stained rewrote the rules of love. But here's the real question. Was she wrong? Or was she simply honest about what the world already runs on? Tell me in the comments. If you were her, would you still chase the man who looked down on you? Or would you buy someone who never will? And trust me, this is only the beginning. Because the man she bought, he had his own secrets. I'll see you in the next chapter.